Okay, this is ITS148. It is September 5th, 2019, and this is like the fourth class. And so today we are in chapter 4. This is the second day of chapter 4. And let me share my screen. Click share. I didn't do this last time. Share. And now we're sharing my screen. And I have Laulima opened up here, and let's look at ITS148. And the overview has our syllabus. And we are Thursday, September 5th. We're going to learn, actually, this is not right. We actually learned converting data types last time. But anyway, we're finishing up this chapter. And we're going to do assignment 4-2. So first of all, and so we're finishing up the chapter. So let me cruise through. I guess the important thing we're going to learn today is scoping. Scoping. So let me open up the slides, PowerPoint slides. Oh, I have them already, I believe. Let me look down here in my thaw space. Slides, chapter 4. All right, so let's see. So you should see that in resources, in class videos, here is the video for last Tuesday, and you recall that I forgot to share my screen last Tuesday, and so the video, so the only people that got anything out of my lecture were the individuals here. All you guys here, yeah, all you guys all saw it, but the couple people at home did not. You heard me, and then also, so what I did was I went home, and the next morning, in fact, I woke up and I recorded a whole new first part of chapter 4 for you, nice and condensed. Showed you how to do the homework problem, and so you should be in good shape. It's nice and short also. I think it's like 20 minutes or something. So I'm going to try to keep this lecture as efficient, and let's get through this. And when I'm done, I will put the video right here. It'll be ITS148 class 04, September 5th, 2019. And it'll be in the resources folder here. So let me, let's do the slides. And this time we're going to, let me pop this up. Don't need to see that. And let me scroll this down. Don't need to see that either. So this time we're going to learn more about coding expressions and assignment statements. Oh, I think are we going to cover the math class? I can't remember. Converting data type. That's what we did last time, Tuesday. Tuesday we looked at casting and converting data from one type to another. Scoping is what we're going to do today, and then we're also, I think we might cover the use of enumerations and nullable types. Nullable types is unique. I think it's unique to this programming language. It's not in any of the other programming languages I know of. It's certainly in SQL. That's a database language, but you know, there are some uses for it, and we will see what those are. And so we covered operator precedence. We covered some implicit and explicit casting. We didn't cover value type and reference type yet, the difference between those. There's different ways of casting. The convert class is the most general. It's got everything. It can convert anything to anything. But then there's other ones that are more specific, that do a little bit more, that offers a little bit some more features. And a class scope and method scope will be reinforced, the differences between class scope and method scope in the assignment. Okay, so we covered this stuff last time, the different built-in types. Declaring and initializing a variable. This declares type variable name, and then variable name equals value. That initializes them, or it sets it equal to something. You can combine the two into just declaring the variable name and then set it equal to something like this. These are the different types. Have you programmed before, Mr. Killian? Yeah, Killian?
Yeah, like for 30 years.
Yeah. So have you ever done C#?
No.
Okay.
We didn't get into that kind of stuff. We did like business overall.
Oh, okay.
That's really like business stuff.
Yeah, the first.
I didn't really do any Windows programming for a living. I just did fun.
You know, but the first programming language that I ever, the first programming language that where I had a paid job was Fortran.
Oh yeah, I had that too.
Yeah, the first programming language that I ever taught was COBOL. But anyway.
You can associate with that.
Yeah, now the programming languages today are a lot different, okay? C# especially. So I'll keep that in mind that you sort of have a basis for being in here. I know you pick it up and you know, it's all about the programming language, you know, putting in rules for the programmers that protect you from making mistakes, and it allows large teams to be able to write code, and it all works together because you're all forced to follow these rules, and then everything seems to, you know, generally connect together better. So we'll see that. So anyway, this is declaring variables with one statement, and then we have constants. The difference between a constant and a variable, it's same thing. You refer to it by name. It equals some value, but with a constant, once you declare it and initialize it in the beginning of your program, you cannot change it after that. Okay. Whereas if it's a variable, of course, you can change it after that. You can change it, your program can change it. Whereas a constant, your program cannot change it. There are these operators, which we know about it. You know, addition and subtraction, you know about. Multiplication, we indicate multiplication with an asterisk. That's all programming languages do that. Division with a slash, all programming languages are that. This modulus operator, this mod operator, most programming languages use percent. Are you familiar with Pascal? Did you ever? That came later, right?
I never really got
Yeah, that was in the 90s. Okay, Pascal was an interesting language. And then we have these unary operators where you put a plus sign in front of a number, and that means it's plus, means it's positive. You don't have to do that. Defaults to positive. But if you put a minus sign in front of a number or a minus sign in front of a variable, that means you want the negative of it. If it's 5, the variable's 5, you put a minus in front of it, it turns into -5. And then these increment and decrement are operators that will change the value, and increment, of course, will add 1 to it, and decrement, of course, will subtract 1 from it. And you can put these operators at the beginning of the variable, in front of the variable, or behind the variable. And if you put it in, they both will do the incrementing. It's just that if you have it on the right side of an assignment statement, and these plus plus or minus minus is in front of the variable, then in the expression, the original value of the variable is used. If these plus plus or minus minus is in front of the variable, then if it's in front of the variable, the operation will take place, like adding 1 to it, and then it's used in an expression if it follows the variable, then the operation comes afterwards. Anyway, that probably didn't make too much sense, but we will see that. I'll show it to you in a program. here's an example here where result, first you take y, whatever y is 8, looks like, or no, y is probably, y is 8. And so if you want to set result 7 equal to minus 8, it's going to do the minus first. So it's going to subtract 1 from 8, make it 7. And then it uses that 7 to store into here. And if the minus was on the other side, then it would use 8 goes into there. And then after that, y would be, you would subtract 1 from y. That'll become more clear later when you start using it. So this is just meant to show you when we do some of these operators using integer, like 14 divided by 8, 14 divided by 8 would normally be, 1.75, I think. 14 divided by 8 would be, be 1.75. However, since it's stored into an integer, the integer cannot take the 0.75, it can only take the 1. So that's why the result is 1, because the 0.75 gets hacked off. Whereas when you're using decimal numbers, of course, decimal numbers can have decimal points, and in the other example, it would be 1.75. Here we've got two variables like this, where we have 8.5 divided by 3.4, and that ends up being this, I guess. And these are the I am recording, just making sure that I'm recording. Pause recording. Okay. These are assignment operators that will also. This is a regular assignment operator. It sets. You evaluate the right side. You evaluate the expression, and you store it into the left side variable. What this does is this just takes. This evaluates the right side, and then it adds it to the left side. Okay. In this case, it just evaluates the right side and stores it into the left side. In this case, it evaluates the right side and then adds it to the left side. In this case, it evaluates the right side and it subtracts it from the left side. This evaluates the right side and then multiplies that by the left side and leaves the result there. This does the same thing for division. This does the same thing for modulus. As you know, modulus is the remainder, right? So here's some examples of assignment statements. Here's some. Okay, here's an example of you take the total and you add 100 to it, and the result is the total is added. You added 100 to the total. Here you subtract. You have subtracted 100 from the total, and this here you've multiplied the price by 0.8. That's what this does. There's order of precedence, as you know, and you're familiar with this. You know, you do the unary operators first, or the increment and decrement. That's the highest priority. Then after those are all done, then you would take positive and negative. Those are the. And then after that, you would. Then after you've taken care of all the pluses and the minuses in front of variables, you take care of all the multiplications, divisions, and moduluses, and you just do that from left to right. So you do all those, and then when you're all done, if there's any additions and subtractions, then you do those. So that's operator precedence, and it has to do with when you're evaluating expressions, and we will reinforce that concept as we go along. So here's an example. Yeah, this was kind of a dumb example because in this case it does the multiplication first and then the subtraction second. That's just left to right. But if you want to do the subtraction first, you put parentheses around it, and that'll make the what's not described here is you do everything inside parentheses first. If there's parentheses, you start with the innermost parentheses first, and you do all that first. You apply these rules inside parentheses, and then if there's more parentheses, you apply these rules again, and then finally, when you've evaluated everything that's inside all the parentheses, then you do the stuff that's outside parentheses, and then you're done. Okay, this is how casting. We did not cover too much about casting in the lecture on Tuesday, but I did cover some on casting in my makeup lecture yesterday that I made a video of that's online right now. It has to do with if you have different types of variables and you want to compute some expression. And it's an expression, it's got variables in it, but it's different types of variables. Sometimes you can mix them up and you don't have to do anything and the computer figures out what you mean. Sometimes you have to explicitly say that you are changing a variable, a type. You're changing a variable type. Once you declare a variable in C#, you can't change it. It's all if you declare something an integer, you just declare I is an integer. I has to be an integer all the way through the whole program. But if you want to mix and you want to use I inside of an expression that's got a bunch of decimal numbers, then you can cast you cast the integer. You cast I to a decimal, or you might cast the decimal numbers to integers. You would get different answers, of course. For implicit, a byte is only 8 bits, so it can only store numbers between 0 and 255, or numbers between -127 and +128, or -128 plus 127. And if you want to mix those with short numbers are 16. They use 2 bytes, so it's between 0 and 65, 535. You don't have to do anything. You can just mix them. An integer is 4 bytes, long is 8 bytes, and a decimal is 16 bytes, I believe. Casting an integer into a double variable is implicit. Double has a decimal point. An integer does not have a decimal point, but if you cast an integer into a double, it's okay because what's the right of the decimal point is just going to be 0. Okay, so it's okay. Float, short, float, and double, this implicit casting, and so on. Character into an integer is implicit. However, if you're going to do something that you cannot do implicitly, then you have to explicitly say it. Like, for example, let's say you have an integer called grade, but you want to store 93.75 into that into this variable. Well, you can't do it because 93.75 is double. That would fit nicely into a double, and it would also fit nicely into a decimal. But it doesn't fit nicely into an integer because an integer cannot have a decimal point. So what you do is you cast it, and you cast it by putting this parentheses int and parentheses in front of it. And then it's going to truncate off the 75, the 0.75, and it's just going to store 93 inside grade. And for casting an integer 65, if you treat that as a character, the value 65 converts to the letter A, the capital letter A in ASCII translation. So if you declare a character, You could call it letter, and you want to store 65 into letter. What you probably mean is you want to store the character whose code is 65, and the character whose code is 65 is the capital letter A, and so that's what this does. This casts it, casts the 65 as a character, in which case it'll be a letter A. Here we're going to store 95.0 into a double variable. That's fine. We're going to store 86 into B and store 91 into C. That's fine. Here's average, and and here it's going to take an integer average. So the result is going to be an integer. Okay, it's not going to have a decimal point. But A is already a double. A is a double. B is an integer. C is an integer. But A is a double, and we want to do a calculation that mixes integers with doubles, and we want to make them all integers. So we're going to cast A. We're going to cast A as an integer. Cast A as an integer. So now this is an integer. It's integer A plus B plus C. It's integer A plus integer B plus integer C. And so it's just going to be 95 plus 86 plus 91, and divide that by integer 3, and you end up with 90, I guess. Down here, you have this integer B, and you want to divide integer B by integer C, but you want to store the result into a decimal variable. Then what you can do is you can cast B as a decimal, cast C as a decimal, and then do the division, and it'll be a division that ends up with a decimal point, and that gets stored into this result. There's a static class called the math class, and the math class has got a bunch of functions in it that you can use. Okay, and the way you do it is the function is called math. For example, if you want to round a number, it's got, you want to round you want to round pi to 2 decimal points or something. You can you can use this round function, and you put the number there, and then you can say what the precision is. And there's a power method, which is some number to a power of something else. There's a square root method, which takes the number and takes the square root of it. And then there's a min function and a max function, where if it's math.min, and then you got a bunch of numbers in here, as many as you want, it will give you the smallest one. Or if you use min.math.max, it'll give you the largest one. I'll be honest with you. I don't know what. I do not know. I don't remember what math mode is. So I'm going to look up C#, math round, and I'm going to see what. Rounding. Okay, so there's various ways that C# will round. Okay, it's optional. Okay, just know this. In C#, when you round, if it's an even number, I can't remember which it is. If it's an even number, you round down. If it's an odd number, you round up. I know. If the 5 rounds up or 5 rounds down, or yeah. No. The first thing I said is right. See if it gives an example here. midpoint rounding. By default, round a positive and a negative value to the nearest even number. Okay, that's the rule. That's the rule. Round it to the nearest even number. So you're either rounding down or rounding up, depending on if the nearest, you know, if the nearest even number is higher or lower. And then this is the midpoint rounding where you can, where there's different ways of rounding. And so there's a reason for that. Oh, it's because if you only round the way that we learn in high school math, then we end up 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I can't remember. It's biased in one direction. I think it may be biased higher. So when they developed this language C#, they took that into account. They didn't want that compounding rounding error. So it alternates back and forth between rounding up and rounding down when you're at 5. So anyway, we will learn. We will have exercises later on that'll reinforce that concept. Okay, static math, round to 2 decimal points. So this uses rounding, so on. Okay, so here it returns the minimum. Here returns the maximum. This returns the square root. This returns the radius to the 2nd power. This is rounds order total to 2 decimal places, and so on. Time is it? 3:53. Static results from static methods of the round class. Okay, 23.75. We are rounding up. 23.85, we're rounding down. You see that? Rounding to the nearest even number. So 7.5, 75, confusing. But you can just see by example here, 23.75 rounds up to 23.8 if you only want 1 decimal point, because 7 is odd and it's 5, it's going to round up. If you have 23.85, it's going to round down to 23.8. If you have 23.86, it's going to round up. Okay, if you have 23.8, if you have 23.74, it's going to round down. It's only if it's 5. You know, 5 is the middle one. 5 is the one that where if in math you learn in high school or in grade school rounding. When you learn rounding in K-12, K through 12, you're always taught that this rounds up to 23.8, this rounds up to 23.9, this rounds to 23.74, this rounds to 73.74. This rounds to 23.75 in grade school math. But this isn't grade school math. This is C# math. Okay, so you have to keep that in mind. I remember the first time I taught this course, I was like, the book made a mistake. I can't believe it. And then I looked it up on the web. My wife's a math teacher. I text her. I said, I can't believe this. Look at this. She's going, well, that's nuts. And then I read why, and it just makes complete sense. And they should teach that. And I'm thinking they should teach the C# way in grade school now. All right. So this is strings. Strings, can hold a bunch of characters and quotes. And you can concatenate strings. How to join them together? Just use a plus sign. It's a different operator in different languages. This one, it's a plus sign. And you can do this implicit casting here, where it's gonna if you have a string and you have a plus and then you have a number, it's gonna automatically convert the number into a string because it knows that you need to treat it like a string. So here, that's why you don't have any casting or anything, toString or anything. Okay, and there's special characters, like if you want to have in your string, you want to have go to the next line, you do \n. If you want to do a tab character, you do \t. If you want to do a return character, which is slightly different than a new line character, depending on whether you're on Windows or Mac or whatever, use \r. And if you want a backslash, you can't just put a backslash because it's expecting you to. So anyway, you put 2 backslashes in a row and it's a backslash. If you want a quotation mark, you put a backslash in front of that also. Okay, here's just some examples of how it uses. These are called escape sequences. They're called escape. There's a backslash and there's called an escape sequence. Here's an example of how they're used. Okay, so in this case, you want it to display out code, JSPS, and then on the next line, you want it to say price equals 49.50. And so this thing here, this \n, makes it go to the next line. And then it concatenates price, $price. And then this goes to the next line too. So there's actually going to be another line, another blank line underneath this. And this is putting tabs in between these words. No, this puts a tab in between the words. This, oh no, here it is. Okay, Joe is here, and then there's a tab, and there's Smith. And then the return, that's \r is return. So then it's going to return, and I don't know, I think this might be messed up somehow, but then there's Kate and then Lewis's tab in between there. Here we're using 2 backslashes because we have to escape a backslash because we actually want a backslash in there. Okay, and here we want to put some quotes in there inside. So that's why we got to put backslashes. And there's another way to assign string values. You use this ampersand, and then it's verbatim strings. So if you put an ampersand there, then it's just going to be exactly how it is inside the quotes. So in this language, there's a difference between, I mean, the double quotes that, you know, in all languages, there's, you know, when you're defining a string, you can use single quotes or double quotes. And there's always some little difference between them. But in C#, there's I don't think you can, well, anyway, C# is unique. I don't know of any other languages that follow these conventions where you have an ampersand and double quote, it's verbatim and so on. All right, here are common .NET data types or structures that you've seen before. These are for the convert. These are exactly the types that are used for if you want to convert from one type to another. Strings and objects, classes, string classes and object classes. That'll be reinforced later. Okay, so for data conversion, there's various ways of doing data conversion. Lots of times you can use one way or another way. It doesn't matter too much, unless you want to, you know, trap for errors. There's toString will take anything that's not a string, and then you stick dot toString parentheses after it. You hook that onto it, and it'll convert it to a string, so you can display it in a text box or display it on in a label or something. But you also have this format feature where you can format it different ways. Like if you have a number and you want to display it out like money, use a format code of C for currency, and it'll display it out looking like money, 2 decimal places and dollars and cents and so on. Parse is just another. Parse is a way of taking a string that could be interpreted as something else, like a number, and it converts it into that. And you put the data type, or the type in front of it, this value type in front of it. And try parse does the same thing, except for parse actually returns the value that you want. What try parse does is it does the same thing, except for returns the value in this result variable. You put another variable in there, and if the parsing is successful, this result variable will have that new value. If the parse is not successful, for whatever reason, the result value will stay the value that it was beforehand. The other thing about this try parse is the function itself. Okay, so here the method returns the value that was the resulting parsed value. Try parse returns true or false. It returns true if it was successful, returns false if it was not successful. So if it returns true, then you know the result has the new parsed value, the value that you want. If it returns false, then result is not going to have the value that you wanted. And then there's this convert. There's convert methods where it's the convert as a class, and then you have these methods. And it might not be clear until we see some examples. Here's the toString. So we have this sales value. It's a decimal value. It's $2,574.98. And we want to display it out as a string, so we can just do that. Sales dot toString, and it turns the whole thing into a string, and then we can write it out as in a message box or whatever. Here's a way to use parse, where we're taking a string, and let's say the string looks like it's this thing here, a sales string. So this is going to be the characters 2574.98 as a string, and then this will parse it back into a decimal value. So decimal parse. We want to parse it into a decimal. Here we want to do the same thing. We want to parse it into a decimal, and if it's successful, it'll put the new value right in there in the sales. Out means it's coming back out at you. It's instead of sending it in. So here we're sending in the sales string, and if it's successful, what we get out is the sales value, which is back to a decimal. Here's a way of doing this implicit conversion, where if we have a price that's a double and we have a string price $ equals plus price, it knows that you're not doing an arithmetic addition. You are doing a concatenation, a string concatenation. And for converting, this is how you do convert. You just name the method, and then you say, I want to convert whatever is in here into a decimal. I want to convert whatever in here into an integer, a 32-bit integer. I want to convert whatever in here into a string. I want to convert whatever in here into an integer. So and convert will do all of them. For string, for the toString, these are the codes that you can use for toString. And so So like here, if you have some amount and you say toString and with the formatting code is C for currency, it's C for currency, P for percent, N for number, integer number, floating point number, this digits, number of digits, I guess, exponential, using the E format. This is just a general, you can see them work. And there's a number afterwards. So this will turn it into percent, P for percent, and you want 1 decimal place, so it's going to look like that. This is going to be, I want N integer N, and I don't need any decimal numbers to the right of the decimal point. And if it's bigger than 1,000, it puts commas in there to divide up to thousands. And this is, you want floating point, and you want three digits to the right of the decimal point. I believe that's what that means. I'm quite sure. I think N is the only one that puts commas. I mean, this messes up a number because numbers don't normally have commas in them. Commas are there for human readability. There's this other thing called the format. The string. There's a string class. It's not a type. We're not talking about the type string. We're talking about the class strings, capital. And there's a format method that comes along with the string class, and it's a way of formatting a bunch of different numbers and so on, all in one string. In these examples, we're only formatting one number, the 0th number. This is the 0th number. But if we have more that we want to convert, we can have a 1 colon something, a 2 colon, and so on. But this does pretty much the same thing as the other ones do. It's just another way of doing it. Okay, real quick, this is classes and scopes. This is important. Here we are. This is a method. This is a nice method here, and this is a class. This is a whole class program. This is a method inside the class. This thing here, because the name of the method is button calculate, and there's code inside this method. See, it's enclosed in these curly braces. And the point of scoping is that these variables, number of invoices and total of invoices, these numbers out here are visible inside these two classes, inside these two methods. So you can refer to number of invoices inside here. Or here you're referring to, you're setting them equal to 0. Here you're referring to number of invoices. You're adding 1 to the number of invoices. Here you're referring to the total of invoices. That's this one. So you can refer to these variables. You can refer to these variables inside these methods. But you cannot refer to these variables. You cannot refer to these variables outside. So in other words, these variables here are only visible inside this method. So if you try to say subtotal down here, or you try to say subtotal up here, it's going to give you an error because subtotal is not defined. It's not defined out here. It's not defined in here. It's only defined in here. So that's scope. It's a simple concept. If you declare a variable inside, it's only visible inside and further inside. So if you want to have a variable that's visible inside all your methods, you want to declare that variable outside all those methods. Okay. So how to work with the scope? You gotta make sure you declare it in the right place. It's either going to have a method scope, which means it's only inside the method, or it's going to have a class scope, which is visible throughout the whole class, including inside the methods, all the methods. And there's this lifetime concept where out here, these variables, these exist all the whole time. These once this class is used, you know, which is probably in the beginning, it's class starts being used. These variables are visible, exist all the time, but these do not. Inside these, the ones that are inside here, they only exist when this method is executing. Once this method's done, then these variables go away. They disappear. They don't mean anything anymore. These still exist. And so if we want to total something up, if we're expecting a bunch of inputs and a bunch of button clicks and we're totaling something up, we want to declare those variables that we total up outside the event handlers. So this button calculate click, you know, these variables, subtotal, discount, they come into existence and then they disappear. Come into existence, disappear. Meanwhile, this number of invoices and total of invoices, they will stick around. You can add to them, and they just keep getting added to, and so on. So that's why scope is important. Oh, enumeration. Okay, so we can talk about enumeration later, but it's just a matter of instead of using like value 1, 2, 3, you can have names for the values. Yes. TV's off. Was it on before?
It was just turned off.
All right, I'm going to quickly whip up this. So in this case, when we declare this enumeration type, there's going to be a it's terms. There's going to be net 30, net 60, net 90. Internally, this is stored as 0. This is stored as 1. This is stored as 2. Okay, and if we convert the enumeration to actual integers, that's what they convert to. However, you can also do it this way, where you actually set it to different values. So I kind of make that's sometimes useful. See here, yeah. See here. So here it's kind of like a combination between an integer and a string. Okay. All right, and these are nullable types. We don't use nullable types very often. All right, so I'm done with this. I'm gonna quickly bring up the assignment. Okay, so if we go to assignments and we go to assignment 4-2, which is the one due today, I've decided to add this rubric. In fact, I want to have rubrics on every assignment now, because it just helps you. If you look at the rubric before you do the assignment, then it's pretty easy just to get everything, because you won't miss something because, oh, it didn't occur to me to do that. Oh, you didn't tell me to do that. Okay, so with the rubric, it's in there. Okay, so I'll come back to this later. But let's go and see what the assignment is. You can click on this, and where it's assignment 4.2, and basically we're making this application here, where you can type in a bunch of scores, and each time you click add, it adds the score to the score total. It increments the count, and it computes an average. And the average is the total divided by the count. Okay, computes the average. And then this clears it, and this exits. So let me open up Visual Studio. And sooner or later we're gonna have to log in. Probably today we have to log in. I'm gonna do language C# platform, Windows, project type, desktop, and it's going to be Windows Forms app. Next. And I'm going to name it, you should name it what it says to name it. Score calculator. Score calculator. And I'm going to put it on the desktop. Okay, create. Okay, here we are. And I'm going to pop open the toolbox, click this little thumbtack thinger there, and common controls. And this is the form, and I'm going to put this over here. Maybe I'll put this like this, and this like this. And I'm going to move this over there. And I'm going to make it look like this first. So let me quickly do that. I'm going to put a label, and a text box, T for text box. And I'm going to grab both of them, and I'm going to go to properties. My license expires tomorrow. We'll deal with this Tuesday, because everyone just needs to make a login, free login, and then when that comes up, you just use your login wherever you made it, and it'll start working again. Properties. I'm going to change the font. Close this. Change the font to something bigger, like 12. And so now I got a label here and this thing, and I'm going to put. I'm going to say this is the. Let's see. I'm just going to leave that there. So I'm going to make this line this up kind of nicer. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to take both of those like that, and I'm going to do copy paste, paste. No. Copy paste. Put that up here. Paste, put that here. Paste, put this here. And I'm going to put a button here. And I'm going to make this 12 point. Get bigger. And, okay. And then I'm going to copy paste. Copy paste. And that's going to be my exit. I'm going to make it look more like that. And copy paste, and this is going to go up here like that. So I guess I can make it look kind of similar. I guess put this over here somehow. This over here. All right. So I got all my things there. Now I've got to label them. I have to change what they say, and I have to change the read-only, and I have to name all of these objects. So this is I don't have to name this, but I have to change what it says. First, I'll change what all these say. Let me find text. Here it is. Label 1 is going to change to score, colon, enter. Label 2 is going to change to score total. Colon. Label 3 is going to change to score count. Colon. And label 4 is going to change to average. Colon. And button is going to say clear scores. And button 2 is going to say exit. And button 3 is going to say add. Okay. And I got to name some of these things that are important. This is going to be, I got to find the name here. It's not going to be called text box 1. It's going to be called txt score. Enter. This one is going to be called txt score total. This one is going to be called, not the label, this one. Text box is going to be called txt score count. And this text box is going to be called txt average. And this button is going to be called btn clear scores. And this button is going to be called btn exit. And this button is going to be called btn add. And this one has got to be read only. So I got to find read only. Read only, true. This one is read only, true. And this one is read only, true. Okay. And you can line these up better somehow. So you can work on lining them up better. Okay, so I've done all that, and now, oh, I better click on Form 1, and I'm going to change the text. I didn't change the text there. Should say score calculator. All right, and we want to make it so. Do we want to? Does it say? Okay, click event. Enter key does add. So let me click the form and find miscellaneous. Enter accept button does add, btn add, and the cancel button does btn escape, exit. Exit, escape. Okay. Now let's write some code. It's 24. Okay, so I'm going to double click on add. I'm going to start this. Double click on exit. And I'll just say this close. Okay. Let's see. I want to add labels. Users enter. Click when the user escape. That does that. Add 2 class variables. Store the total score and score count. Okay. So class variables. They're going to be at this outside level here, and I'm going to put them right after there. And so I do. I'll do decimal. Score total, and I'll just set it equal to 0, 0M for money. Decimal, it doesn't matter. Oh, I guess I could do integer, couldn't I? Whatever, it doesn't matter. Integer. Okay, let's do integers. Int score equals 0, and int int score count equals 0. And okay, create an event handler for the click event of the add button. This event handler should get the score, calculate and display the score total, score count, score average, move the focus to the score text box. Okay, move this focus. Okay, it should do integer values. Okay, so so let's go back to the form here, and I'm going to fix clear scores first. Clear scores should clear those two variables and clear this and this and this, and should probably clear this too. So let's do that. Clear scores. So clear scores right here, it's going to say, I'm going to say score total equals 0. Score count, oops. Score count equals 0. And we want to make TXT score total equals blank, and I got to do it, dot text dot text. Then we do, so that's the score total text box, txt score, why isn't it? txt score count dot text equals blank, txt score dot text equals blank, and so average, txt average equals blank. .text. And we should also put the focus back onto txt score focus. I think that's how you do it. All right, is that right? What does it say? Oh, I should do that. Oh, sure. It likes me to do it that way. Okay, so now button clear scores is set up. Okay, now now the last thing I have to do is to make this thing work. So I'm going to double click that, and now here we are. And what should the add? I want to so the person has input a score. I want to add that score to, okay, so I want to say score total plus equals, oh, let's grab out the score first. I'm going to call it int score equals txt score dot text. I want to make that an integer, so I'm going to do what? Convert dot int 32 parentheses that. So we are assuming that the person is going to type stuff incorrectly. So we aren't going to worry about whether they type something in funny. Okay, so now I've got the score that the guy typed in, and I want to add it to the total. So score total plus equals score. I want to increment the score count. Score count. I can do plus plus, just like that. Huh? Pretty fancy. And I want to put the new values into score total, score count, and average. So I do txt score total dot text equals score total dot toString. And I want to do txt score count dot text equals score count toString. And the average is going to be txt average dot text equals, I can do it this way, parentheses, score total divided by score count, close parentheses, dot toString. Huh? I can do that. That works. And then I got to put the focus back on equals txt score focus. Okay. I'm going to see if this works. Start. $98, enter. Okay. I don't know. 100. Oops. Ooh, I should clear that, I suppose. 100, enter. Okay. 90. Oops, I should clear that. 90. I don't know if I should clear it or not. Does it say to clear it? Okay, anyway, so that's 3, 50, enter. Okay, so it seems like it's working. And now I'm going to test the clear scores. Clears everything. And now let me do 50, enter. So it actually did clear everything. See, it's possible. It's one possible error is that the person does not do these. So, so for example, if this were a comment, oh, I can't do that well. It's coding. Never mind. It's possible. One possible error though is that you forget to clear out these class variables. So even though everything else is cleared, once you type in another score, it looks funny because it's still got the old score total and score count. That's a pretty common error for this kind of application. But anyway, I am done. So let me. So this looks good now. I don't know if I've done everything. I think I've done everything, but I might not have done everything. So you want to go through each one of these and make sure that I picked up everything, but I think I probably did, but I'm not sure. Okay. So when I'm done, I want to save all. And then I want to close, exit. And then I want to, here it is. Oh, where is it? Oh, here it is. Right click and send to compressed zip folder. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to put my name in the text as a comment. You got to make sure you do that. And then I'm going to go back to here, and you notice to get all the documentation, you have to. Is this the right one? Oh, your name as a comment in the code. So, and I didn't put any comments. So you want to put some comments in there. Just throw some comments in there. No empty event handlers. I showed you how to get rid of a mistaken event handler in the video that I made yesterday. In the last video, I showed you how to get rid of when you accidentally have an empty event handler in there, it shows how to get rid of that. All right, so you know, you can read this and try to make sure you do all these right here in this first column there. Just make sure you got all those right. And so then when you're done, you want to, you can choose the file, find it. It's this one, score calculator, open. And I've uploaded it, and then I can submit. And so now it's submitted. And if you aren't sure whether or not you're done yet, and you still want to work on it, and you don't want to email it to yourself, then instead, there should be a Dropbox here, Dropbox, and then just upload it here. Actions, upload files, and just take your thing here and drag it over there and continue. And now you've got it here, and you can come back Tuesday and pull it back up again, and we can check it if you want. And so this is a good way to save your stuff, and then come back later and show me, and we can fix stuff and all that. All right, so I've kind of gone over, but I think I finished chapter 4, and I've shown you very clearly how to do the assignment, and I hope you're able to follow along. Are there any questions? Is there any chat here? Nobody chatted? All right, so thank you at home, and I will post this video up before the end of the night. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, is there a question over there? Okay, I'll see you later. End meeting. Thanks for watching.